can't blow a group play game. We did blow one last Olympics to France, and then we righted the wrong in the medal round. But the point was that these games all count. It's not like a 7-game NBA playoff series where, okay, so you lost game 2, you can figure it back out. Sometimes you can't figure this back out, and Kevin Durant has been way better in international play than he has been in NBA playoff play, where overall in his career from 3 in NBA playoffs, he's played 170 NBA playoff games. He's 36% from 3. So 50% versus 36%. I don't know what gets into Kevin on this stage, the international, the world stage, but he's by far the greatest player in U.S. basketball history and international play. So go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, look, I agree with you on all of that. And I believe that one of the reasons why he's so good in international play is because what he always says is, I just want a ball. I just want to play. And this allows him to simply focus in on, I have a particular role. We're not asking him to be an emotional or psychological leader. We're not asking him to do a lot of other things. We're just, KD, can you flip the game? Can you score when we need to score? And I believe in particular, in much like the NBA, the international game has become very three-point driven. And the three-point shot, if you go through all of the run-up games and the Serbia game, all of them are decided by who shoots the three better. Nobody shoots the three better in international play than Kevin Durant, which is another reason why I think he has a legitimate shot at being the MVP of this team. And Keyshawn, don't get me wrong. I believe the Team USA should win gold. I believe that they will be there at the end. I believe that these guys are motivated to, it's sort of the last dance for LeBron James and Stephen Curry. And you have the young up-and-coming guys. And maybe the biggest thing is that Steve Kerr has demonstrated that he's not worried about feelings. He's like, I'm going to play the guys that I need to play in order to win. And if that means Joel Embiid only plays 11 minutes, so be it. If Jason Tatum's not playing, so be it. I'm going to put the guys out there that I need in order to win this game. And that's why I believe the Team USA should win gold. But the thought that it's not going to be tough or that it's not going to require our best in order to do it defies what has happened over the last decade and a half, no matter who we've put out there, because one, the rest of the world has caught up, and two, the NBA has become a different game from the international game. It has become a very ISO type game, and the international game is not. So it's always a learning process for us, no matter who we put out there, every time we compete in international play.
You know, I don't want to, as Skip would call me, Mr. USA or whatever he calls me.
I call you ugly American.
Yeah, ugly American.
You need a flag there.
I'm not an ugly American, and I understand that in our eyes, we feel as though the international game has caught up because so many international players have come over, whether they were drafted #1 overall, Rick, or #2 overall. They've won 3 or 4 MVPs here in the last 4 or 5 years or so. I get all of that. But when we're talking about individuals versus the game, and I understand you go to 2020 and say, well, we lost to France. Well, that team wasn't compared to the 92 Olympics. That team was not, there was no conversation about, are they better than Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Chris Mulley and company? That conversation wasn't there. This is a conversation where you got, what do you got, 4 arguably of a conversation of the top 10 players in American basketball on the U.S. team? Because when I say argue, I'm talking about where they finish, right? And when their career's over, whether it's a LeBron, a Curry, or a KD, or whatever, that conversation is going to come up. That other team didn't have that conversation. So correct me if I'm wrong, Skip and Rick, do you think LeBron James and Kevin Durant are chasing something? Meaning, like, are they trying to prove that they are better than the old heads? Or do they want people to remember them as better than the Dream Team? I think they do.
Sure.
And the only way you're going to be able to do that is win by 26, win by 30. You can't win by 10 and be considered the same as the Dream Team in 92. That's just my opinion. I could be flat ass wrong, but that's just my opinion.
No, I think that's fair. But if that was the case, and if it was a matter of, you know what, we can't just coast through these and just take wins. We've got to have dominant wins. Like, the run-up games count, as far as we're talking about that perspective. If they truly had control over it in determining just by how they're going to win, but by how much, if that was really true, then they were really motivated by that, then they should have been doing it in all of the run-up games, because the 92 team didn't have any close games. No. Like, they were winning everything by 20 or more.
By 40 or more.
That's where I don't believe this is fully within Team USA's control. I think there's this idea that, hey, you know what? We just don't take the rest of the world seriously. And that's when we have a close game or we potentially lose. Like, it's because we're just not giving our best. I don't think we're in that place. I believe that these guys are trying, and that it's putting our teams together. Every year we're rebuilding. We're building a new team. And it takes them time to get the same chemistry and cohesion that these international teams have, because they've been playing together since they were in their teens. And they understand the international rules and the international game and the international officials better than we do. And you add the fact that now they're NBA players, and there's no longer an intimidation factor because they play against these guys and are winning awards over these guys. So that's gone. All of the things that boosted us, that made us so dominant, a lot of those factors are gone. Now it just comes down to, can you play this international game better than we can? And so far, Team USA has. But I don't think it's by any accident that it hasn't been by much.
We won by 26, Rick. By much.
The first group play game, we should have lost to South Sudan. Germany came down to the final possessions. And by the way, Germany's not going to show you their hand at the end in terms of how they would defend. They let LeBron James go one-on-one. Hey, they know it's a run-up game. We may have another design. We have another idea when we get to that.
You certainly been talking
they're not going to show that in a run-up game.
You've been talking to Skip too much, because that's what Skip tried to say.
Skip and I are just seeing the same things. We don't have to talk.
You're wrong.
It's telepathic.
Y'all wrong. Skip tried to sell me. He tried to sell me and Paul on the same thing. Well, they're playing possum. They're laying in the weeds. Don't get fooled by Serbia. They got Bogdanović. He didn't play in the game. Don't be fooled by Joker. Joker knows the NBA.
Wait a second, Keyshawn. Did you predict that Kevin Durant would come off the bench and score 21 in basically a quarter?
No,
if you had predicted that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did not predict that, nor will I lie to you, but we said he would play.
Okay.
And if he played, it's certainly going to tip the scale.
Okay. But even Paul said if he plays, he's got to start. And he comes in with 2 minutes left in the first quarter. Okay. Here's why this was so shocking to me, and I'm going to go back to Rick's knowledge of the NBA, because nobody knows the NBA any better than Rick Bucher does.
I know the NBA. Rick doesn't know.
You know it fairly well. Okay. Think about Kevin Durant. In his last 20 NBA playoff games, his teams are 6-14 because he hasn't been great in any of these series. There have been circumstances in Brooklyn, but remember, Boston swept Brooklyn in Kevin's last playoff series there, and he shot 23% from three in the four-game sweep. Then the next year, they were eliminated in the second round by Denver in 6 games. He shot 22% from three. Then last year, they were swept by Minnesota. So my point is 6-14. I haven't seen these kind of flashes from Kevin in the playoffs since that fateful toe-on-the-line game, Brooklyn against Milwaukee, Game 7 at Brooklyn. That was kind of the end of Kevin as an all-time great playoff player. That's the last time I saw him be great. And they obviously, if his toe's not on the line, they win the game, but they lost it in overtime. And that was it, basically, for Kevin Durant. So, Rick, put in perspective how shocking it is, Kevin's international play versus his recent NBA playoff performance.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot, Skip, of Carmelo Anthony, who's very similar.
Yeah, he
in
is.
That
That's a good one.
Internationally,
Yeah.
always just a different player. You look at it and go, how come we don't see Carmelo Anthony on a consistent basis in the NBA? And I do believe some of it is the fact that they have the ability, they're not asked to do more than they're capable of. They're put in their sweet spot with these teams. The teams are talented enough that you have the leadership, you have the playmaking, and you just allow them to do what they do best. And when they can focus in on that, that's when you see them go supernova, which is what Kevin Durant did and what I would expect him to continue to do. But I mean, the advantage that Team USA had against Serbia was that you're coming off the bench with Kevin Durant, who makes his first 8 shots and from everywhere and with ease.
Yeah.
Like, do other teams have that? No, they do not.
No.
But can you expect, while I think that KD will continue to play well, I'm not expecting him to go 8 for 9 every game. And if he doesn't, how does that affect the rest of that team? Because this was the thing for all the Team USA, for all the great players that they have, KD coming in with them once again behind and a little bit wobbly and doing what he did infused a confidence in everybody. Suddenly Anthony Edwards is playing at a different level. Devin Booker is coming in and he's got his fire lit. Like, he had an impact on everybody. And as a result of that, it ended up being a blowout. But I do not expect that this is going to be the pattern going forward for every single game, particularly when we get to the medal round and the pressure is completely different because it's March Madness. It's one and